Welcome Home Radio Podcast. Are you looking to buy or sell your home? Our team is here with answers to guide you through the buying and selling process. We encourage you to ask questions. Please comment on this show or visit us at welcomehomeradio.net for more information. Bringing real estate, lending, and education together in one place, and to help you make the right home decision for you and your family. Here are your hosts, Blair Thomas, Thom Holm, Alan Pace, and Jeff Duffy.
And welcome to Welcome Home Radio, where real estate lending and learning come together. It is August 16th. We're excited you're with us today. Want to bring you up to snuff on some things that happened last week that I think are very important, and want to get some comments from my co-host. So guys, welcome again. But I'm very distraught at the first time ever the United States passed the $1 trillion mark in credit card debt. On Wednesday of last week, we passed that mark, and $455 billion was just done in the last 3 months. So we see a trend here that is very concerning of standard of living, but paying minimals on credit cards, and our credit card debt has never been as high as it is today. What are your thoughts? What are your comments on that? Were you aware of that? Because this also comes back to what happened last Monday, which was banks being, what is the term, turned down and or derated a little bit, loss of rating, and therefore interest on this credit card debt is going up. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this before we get started on our topic today.
Well, I will say one thing about that statistic is that it does reflect that even though that is the first time we've been at $1 trillion, we're still below percentage-wise the spending as far as the propping up of GDP that was established back in 2006 is the highest time the amount was in comparison to our gross national product. So, but all things aside, it's still $1 trillion, and it's still a lot of money as far as we've gone through this phase where we used a lot of the PPE money to pay down debt, and we got that reduced quite a bit, which was a good thing during that time frame. But we're seeing the reemergence of the use of credit cards, and people again are having to deal with inflation and the higher cost of living, and they're doing it through use of short-term credit, which is scary.
It is, because again, credit card companies constantly state, pay the minimum. Here's the minimum required payment. And that allows people to think, okay, I can take care of this. But going back to the bank rating system, I just found out that normally credit cards for good creditors are right around 14%. That has now jumped to 21 to 28% is the range. And therefore, credit card debt is going to turn even more, in that we could actually get to $2 trillion inside of 3 to 5 months if people do not look at this in a serious way. So the standard of living, the standard of they're maintaining where costs are going up, gas, food prices, everything has gone up. I'm just very concerned that people are not watching this, and as much credit as we see when they're looking for a mortgage, getting pre-approved. I'm amazed that people have 3, 5, 7 credit cards, and most of the time they're maxed out.
I have never in my life seen so many people worried about their credit card debt. I mean, it's just talking with people, and some people refinanced a few years back and consolidated their debt, and now they're getting in trouble again. And it's been a tough 18, 24 months of inflation. Everything's gone much more expensive, just things to put your kids in school or get through the day. So people are just whipping out the credit card. We'll worry about it tomorrow. And Blair, with you saying $1 trillion, I don't know if $1 trillion means welcome to tomorrow or not. see this as really, I don't know, maybe one of you guys think it's going to come down drastically soon. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it when you talk to people. They're generally concerned, and it's an issue right now.
If there, in my opinion, if there was a concern, I don't know if we would go to that level. But again, I also see people have been enabled to push debt off. I mean, one of the things is student debt is about to come on board now again. Payment starting September 1st. They've been deferred. People are used to living this way, and they're not managing that debt. And now it's going to come back on, and things are going up. Hey, I still want to get food on the table. I still need gas, but I also want to go on this trip. I also want to do this, and all costs are going up. Like Thom said, it's easy to put it on plastic and worry about it and later. And interest rates going up in the credit card, and banks still making their hand over fist money, compound interest on this. It seems like we're not learning our lesson very well if it's not talked about and discussed, and that, look, you can't pay minimums and ever. I mean, how is it paying minimums? You never get caught up. You never, ever pay it off. I mean, unless you
Well, let's make sure we make that correct. That they changed that, and the law prevents us from credit card companies. You have to make a contribution towards principal. Albeit, if you buy a couch at Ashley Furniture and you make the minimum payment, you end up paying for it for 26 years.
Okay,
I bet that better be a good couch.
How many couches have you gone through right now?
It wasn't on sale as you thought it might have been.
So you took out a mortgage to buy a sofa.
That's correct.
I mean, I just don't think we're talking about it enough. I've seen too many people working with a few people. It's befuddling to me that credit cards seem to stay maxed out, yet we're worried about interest rate on a mortgage or paying for something that's going to return investment. Credit cards never return an investment. They always cost you more than what you think. I wanted to bring this up because, two, the banking system being downgraded, and one, crossing over the $1 trillion mark. That's a huge number. How many zeros that is just unbelievable.
I can't imagine, though, seriously, again, people, living their life, like you said, Blair, doing what they have to do to get by. They don't care about $1 trillion, and they certainly don't care about anything other than if Visa, MasterCard, Discover, or somebody else says you can't, you're done. We're cutting you off. There's got to be consequence, and just like the Fed doing what they're doing, there's a consequence to everything. And until they cut people, I don't know. If you can just keep using the card and getting along and everything's fine and you're barely making it each month, then who cares? There was $1 trillion debt. Who cares about this? Or who cares about that? All I care about is dinner next week, and can I make my car payment? Oh, by the way, my insurance went up 30% this year. So there's a lot of stuff that people think about. I don't think they're thinking about, the $1 trillion debt. To them, it's just another day.
I understand. I guess I wanted to bring it out into the light and say we need to be concerned, because I actually had a client the other day go, well, I'm not too worried about that student debt. I'm going to be forgiven that soon, and they're going to vote on that and everything. And I'm like, I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. Joe Biden can say whatever he wants, but he doesn't have the legal right to delete your debt. But that was their vision. And they didn't even understand it was only $10,000, not the $90,000 that they owed, all of that. I mean, there's a lot of confusion. And I guess I wanted to bring that out because it blew me away that from Tuesday to Wednesday, Tuesday evening, close of business, it was announced Wednesday morning, we crossed over that $1 trillion mark. And we only did it, in 3 months, we did $455 billion. And this is personal credit card debt. This means they're carrying over balances from one month to another. I mean, that blows me away. Bless you.
Bless you, Thom.
Sorry.
So I'm sorry. Again, comment, find us at welcomehomeradio.net. Give us your thoughts on this. This is an interesting data point that I think we need to be aware of. But we're here to talk about what are the top 10 things you need to do to prepare to buy a home. You're a first-time home buyer. You're out there considering, you're wanting to get out of the rent race, and you want to figure out. So I'm going to lay out right there. We just talked about it. The first thing you need to do is understand where your credit is. What do you need to do to have credit scores that are worthy of a good mortgage? I'm saying a good mortgage. If we can still do mortgages at 500 credit score, but understand that you're going to be paying way more than you should anywhere in the 500s. We can do things, but we want to do a good one. That means you want a 620 credit score or better going up. 780 is really the max. You don't need an 800. 780 or plus, you get the top programs, you get the top rates, you get everything. But being prepared for what's on your credit report, being prepared for what's there and understanding it, things that you can impact, always important, always a concern. And to realize that you can increase your credit or decrease it by simple things that you do. And if you understand that, get with somebody, call myself, call anyone here. Let us help you understand what your credit report can look like and could look like if you worked at it for 30 days.
Yeah, and just to throw this in on top of that, for the folks that haven't done it before, sometimes it's a quick conversation. You're good to go. Other times it takes time. So if you're thinking about buying a home in the future, don't wait. Talk to a lender right away, whoever you trust with your money, and get the information sooner than later. Call Blair.
So checking with credit, what's the next thing somebody needs to consider? What is that next step that, okay, they've got the credit. Now, I do want to bring out, don't go to Credit Karma and check your credit, okay? Credit Karma is there to try to sell credit cards. That's a different algorithm than we use in the mortgage industry. So just understand the mortgage industry's long-term debt calculation is the hardest, and it will be different than what Credit Karma or a bank, auto loan, or anybody along that line. So check with the mortgage lender, please. So what's the next thing?
Well, you definitely got to have an idea of, where you want to be.
So you nail down a budget?
Yeah, well, nail down the budget and where you want to be, and they go together. Sometimes where you want to be isn't in your budget.
It comes a realization, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then you got to realize what you can afford maybe isn't where you want to be. And, I did a video the other day on To the Point about renting. Sometimes it is the right thing to do for a while. Sometimes it takes you a year or two to be ready to buy. Once you talk to the lender, you get the good information. It might take time. So, but you got to definitely have an idea where you want to be. And that comes into play with your situation, schools, community.
What would you say a timeline to just get somebody started and thinking, are you saying we need to be, if you plan to buy, it needs to be 6 months before you plan to buy is when you need to really start this process? Or is it 9 months? Or is it 3 months? What is that?
I think personally, I tell people the minute you think you're going to buy something or want to buy something, go to the lender immediately. Don't wait. Don't put a 2 months on. I'm going to move in 6 months. I'm going to move in a year. Don't do any of that. If you and yours have a conversation about, I'm tired of renting this apartment and the noise and the parking lot and blah, blah, blah. The next day, make a few phone calls to people that, like call Blair. Say, listen, we don't know exactly when, but we want to know if, and we want to know what our circumstance is. I can't tell my lender 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, but I know we want to. And in general, the people I talk to, they kind of know where they want to go first before they even think about the money. They kind of, I want to live in, Mesquite. That's what I want to do. And
Why?
another
I'm
6
teasing, I'm
months,
teasing.
another 6 months, it goes by, and they go, well, we got to do something. Well, don't do that. The minute you say I want to live in Mesquite, call a lender, find out where you're at, get some good information. It's in that category of knowledge is power.
Amen. Nailing down that budget, checking your credit, getting your capacity, but then understanding your considerations of wants. Why is this driving force wanting you to move or wanting you to buy a home, own a home? It could be anywhere from, hey, we're growing family, we need larger space. I want to be out in the country a little bit. I want my closest neighbor a mile away. Or, hey, I want to be next to the grandkids and be very short and close so that they can come over and see me every day after school. I mean, understanding those driving forces helps you understand and quantify what you're doing. That's at least my thoughts. What are y'all's thoughts?
Well, I keep having thoughts, but I thought I'd let somebody else talk for a while.
No, you're good.
I know Thom has got an HVAC problem, so he's very focused right now on staying cool.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Thom. Is that why you're sneezing?
Losing as little as possible.
No, it's all part of it. There's a dream, it's changed over the generations a little bit, I think. When I was moving out of the house at 17 years old, I knew right then someday I wanted to have my own house. I wanted to have a house and the yard and all that stuff. That isn't the way it is today. So I think that's changed, Blair, and it's probably changed every generation since there was a country. But in general, I think that's changed a little bit. I think it goes back to budgeting, and that's changed a lot recently. And that puts the whole plan that you might have had 2 years ago up for grabs a little bit. The budget, I don't know if wages have kept pace with the cost of housing via interest rates. And for that matter, gosh, the cost of housing isn't coming down. It's just not.
I think it's safe to say those two have not kept pace.
Yeah. Well, I'm not an expert on it. That's my opinion, but I didn't want to just state it as fact. Maybe you guys know the stats exactly.
I've seen the stats that back it up, but I don't have it in front of me to share it with you at the moment.
Yeah. Well, it's
the old proverbial they say.
I like that word, proverbial. That's awesome. The whole thing about, timing and, I still want to do it, but gosh, I can't now. That's what's going on a lot. That's a lot of the conversation nowadays.
Well, I heard you say something that kind of not concerns me, but is the American dream. Part of the American dream has always been to own your own home. I mean, has that changed in cultures now? Is it you'll own nothing and like it?
No, that's not the attitude, but things have changed. I know people that don't want to buy; they want to rent. They're happy, and they make $300,000 or $400,000 a year. They don't want nothing to do with a house. They got a nice place to rent. They don't cut grass. They don't water. They don't pay real estate taxes. They're happy renting. It has changed, I think, and so. But I'm not saying people don't want to live in a house. And, I try to bring up with potential clients, that, the backyard, the kids, the space, the schools, the yard, and the pets. And there's still a lot of inequity. My goodness. It's still the biggest savings tool the majority of people have.
Well, and you brought up something there that
not the top 10% of America, but the rest of us, it's a big thing.
If you understand net worth, and 75% is that made up of real estate that you own, then I just think buying your own home is a part of that process. We all can't be the Trumps or any of those folks that buy major real estate and so forth. But the bottom line is,
huh? You mean the Duffy family?
That's yachts, that's yachts.
But it's really to grow wealth. One of the key things, and it's again 75% of the calculation has normally been real estate. And so, I mean, I looked at a chart and information that in preparing for a presentation of, and Thom, you probably have some insight to this, but in 1943 is when we started tracking real estate equity and appreciation growth. And do you realize since 1943, we've only had 7 years of negative growth? Even in those decades of the negative growth years, they grew in the decades. It was always positive. So real estate seems to be one of those things that continues to return positively in the long run. If you're committed, if you want to get in and out like the stock market, it's not going to work as well. But real estate is that long-term investment that continues to pay. And it's never been a bad investment, even at rates like today. And the second thing is people are so stuck on rates so badly. It's a shame since we've been tracking this. Again, guess what the average interest rate across since 1943 to today?
7.5.
You're very close. 7 3/4. 7 3/4. So these are still good rates, despite what people think, and they have to realize it's never going to get there.
Stop
again.
right there, Blair. That's a good point. That's happening right now. For those of us old enough to remember 13, 14% on housing, there's a whole generation or two that don't know anything but 3, 4 or less. But the norm is changing. You know,
Well, can I stop you right there for a second?
Yeah.
We need to ask our aged veteran in the real estate world, how much was interest rate in the cave days?
You mean when I bought my first house at 14%?
Yeah.
And they went up eventually to 19%?
Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
Now, of course, I got an owner finance and assumed a loan, which gave me a combined about 8.5% rate. And I realized how brilliant I would be in real estate if I stayed in real estate at that point.
Gosh, the air conditioning's working just fine now.
Yeah, it sure is.
But my point is about as the new norm gets to be norm, 6 or 7%, and people start realizing, waiting for 3, so things will shift just like they did back in the day at 13 or 14%. People bought houses, and the interest rates did come down, and a lot of us refinanced and went on our merry way. But I think it just time happens. I mean, it went from 3 to 6 or 7 pretty quick.
Can I quote you? Time happens.
You go right ahead, AC man.
I'm sorry to break in. Continue.
That's bumper sticker material, isn't it?
It is, exactly.
Time happens.
Waldo says time happens. If you don't like it, I don't know what shows for you, bro. But the point is, the new norm is being established, and that's my opinion. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to see 2 3/4 again in my lifetime.
Well, I think, again, it goes back to education. And that's partly why we want to do this show. That's partly why we're bringing up these topics is we want to make sure people put things into a process for them and ask the right questions, be aware of the right circumstances, and try to get an educated decision, because I don't believe 2 and 3% interest rates are going to be here back in our lifetime.
I thought I just said that.
Maybe in another time happens, okay?
Man, we're a bunch of Debbie Downers today. You guys?
No, I'm not a Debbie Downer. I'm trying to face facts that I don't think 4.5 is going. I think 4.5 is probably ever going to be the best we'll see in the next 2 or 3 years.
Not months.
Not months, years. So I guess I want to make sure people understand that real estate is still a great investment. It continues to grow. I mean, they've been saying on the news that we're going to have a housing crash. Well, where's the housing crash? Because my property, your property here in Texas and other states continues to grow in value. And because we have a limited supply of new homes coming on, and people moving are not desired to be moving, they're not desiring to get either out of their mortgage or, hey, I don't have any debt. I don't want to have an incur a mortgage at this time. I'm staying put. And so we have to work in the area that we're at, and in a way that I think goes back to education, making good decisions. And long term, if we look at somebody's blended rate of their financing, whether it be credit cards, auto loans, student loans, and a mortgage, I bet you overall that mortgage is going to be better than the other interest rates that they're paying, especially on credit cards now. So, okay, we talked about those items. There's a couple of more key items first-time home buyers need to be prepared for. I think one of the key ones is working with a key real estate agent like Alan or Waldo. It's you need somebody that's on your side, that's looking for you and aware, but also be able to advise you. As me, I try to give 2, 3, 4 options on a loan, on a lending solution, on financing where you're at. Also, a realtor should give you options, should give you insights that you're not thinking about, so that you have the best and most information accurately to make a decision. And right now in this country, we're seeing homes are being, again, bid on 2, 3, 4, 5 bidders, and a lot of times overpriced, over asking. Is that a good decision to make? Is that bid over asking? What can I do that I get? When do I get my return? And it goes back to looking at the data. How long are you going to be in the home? If you're in the home 3, 4, 5 years, over asking may not be worthwhile. But if it's your, hey, my kids are going to grow up here and graduate from high school, so I'm going to be here 15 years, that makes sense. But having those key discussions with a key partner of yours, a realtor that knows you, cares about your goals, cares about your priorities, gives you good advice. What are your all's takes on that? Because I've heard of a lot of bad experiences out there, people negotiating, or, oh, I'm not willing to have a realtor on. I can do this myself. We see a lot of that, or at least I am seeing some of that going on.
Personally, I think it goes right along with timing the market. It's a chancy thing. I mean, there are people that are really good at doing real estate on their own. They can do it, and it happens. But most people are not. I've worked with just every kind of profession there is out there, helping them buy a house, including lawyers. So, find a specialist that works for you. I think any good realtor, first thing they want to do with a client or a potential client is listen. Listen carefully to what the client has to say, what their goals are, what they want, what do they expect out of the process. And then from there, you go out and you try to make, their so-called dream happen. And you can learn a lot from just listening to your client and going forward from there.
Anybody else?
I think it's interesting. 3%, when you think of most things you buy in your lifetime, you don't consider that to be very much as far as the tax, do you? In this case, but because of the price of a home can get so expensive, that's when people go, I don't want to pay that. I want to save that. Well, let me give you an example of why you need somebody who knows what they're doing, who's a full-time representing you. And as we had a contract, the agent representing the buyer had written our title company in on the contract. Seller was trying to represent himself, then said, okay, that's fine. You can use your title company. Assuming, not knowing the contract, that automatically meant the buyer then had to pay for the title policy. Now we're getting to closing and the seller realizes, no, sir, that's your fee because you didn't change who was paying for you allowed them to change who the title company was going to be. That's what using and having someone who's full-time as a licensed representative look out over your shoulder and really take care and overlook your needs representing you. That's just one quick example that just happened last week.
And it happens frequently nowadays when people do the for sale by owner thing and the buyer agent brings a buyer and, oh, well, you can just do the contract work. And so the first thing out of your mouth is, I represent the buyer in the buyer's best interest, and hopefully they understand that, so it's the other thing that's really, I think has changed in the last 10 years with a lot of things, is the whole going direct in everything nature of business, skipping anything that's not from my hand to your hand, try to make it as easy as I can. I'll save money, but they don't save money. I mean, the majority of the time they don't. I mean, Tom's very experienced, knowledgeable about real estate, does his own, and that's great. And, he might even have somebody write it up for him. I don't know, but, it's a deal where most people don't have that kind of knowledge. And you see mistakes all the time when you're out there and you point them out. I mean, you have ethics. You want to make sure everybody's on the up and up. So, but I don't know. Just long as if you buy in a house, it doesn't cost you anything. I don't know why you wouldn't use a realtor. I am a realtor. I don't want to sit here and toot that horn and let the other guys do that. But it just seems logical to me.
Is it happening with the for sale by owners that they only want offers made without realtors? I mean, has that been happening, or those FSBOs, are they able to negotiate, or because you allow another realtor, the buyer's realtor, to set up the contract. Their fiduciary responsibility is, as Jeff said, is for the buyer, and slipping in seller paying title, seller paying appraisal, those sorts of things are possible.
Well, it says on the contract, get with a lawyer. It says you should get a lawyer, all that stuff. So, there's that, but your job's protect the buyer, but you don't want anything not right to be on a contract. I mean, playing tricks or trying to slip a check here or a check there, that's not what it's about. At least that's not how I do stuff. But anyway,
we understand that, and I'm just saying it happens in the real estate world. I mean, I'm looking over a construction contract right now, and since the buying family does not have an agent, I'm trying to look at what the contractor is doing, and it is a custom home. There are certain aspects, but we'll go through it. And but you have
one thing that hasn't changed is the seller's the boss. The seller can do whatever they want with their house. They can sell it. I don't want to use any realtors. I don't want my buyer to use a realtor, and going to take longer. Probably going to go as nice. You are going to have to get some kind of a attorney involved somewhere. So, I just think nothing's changed in that aspect. I'm a seller of a house. It's my house. I can do what I want with it.
Okay.
Till I'm under contract.
Okay, guys, we've kind of talked about several things. Check your credit, understand it, nail down a budget so that you understand and you live within that budget for the home you're looking for. Consider your desires, needs, wants, schools, location, size of home, that sort of thing. Understand your financing, get pre-approved, and then, work with a valuable agent that's going to be looking out. And finally, especially first-time home buyers should be looking at any down payment assistance they can have. It saves them money, or maybe that's the only way they can get help, since they're not able to save or not have enough savings to put down 3% or 3.5% or 5%. If you're a veteran, it's 100%. There's still a cost to the mortgage. So you have to have that financing reserves. Maybe that's time where you're saving up some money or paying down, getting your credit checked. But, the bottom line is look for down payment assistance. They are coming back. They are here. They are available to you. So be aware of those opportunities, and maybe be working with a lender that will give you multiple options. Look out for you.
Yeah, and that's another reason to talk with somebody, talk to Blair early, and he'll point out what's available to you. Every family's different, but you want to do it soon. I mean, find out. I think if you're a first-time home buyer, all you've heard is, well, what is a buyer assistance? I've heard of that, but I don't know what it is exactly. Well, most people don't. And, maybe a friend used it, but it won't work for you. So it's part of the first thing you do. You talk to a lender. The lender's going to tell you, after they look at your information, hey, did you know about this program? Or did you know about this program? It's going to help you with your down payment. And if you're a veteran, I mean, Blair's the best. I mean, there's nobody better at veterans lending than Blair. So just get with him on that. But do it early. Don't wait. Don't procrastinate. And don't look at these things on Twitter or X or whatever they call it now. And oh, you wait, time the market. It's going to come down and interest rates are going to come down. And no. Nobody can predict that. People that time the market do it best by accident or need. That's the fact.
I want to add one last thing as far as these lists that we're giving folks. And this is an experience I had yesterday, and I want to share it with everybody. We're going through this list of, getting your ducks in a row, getting pre-approved, I think number one on the list, actually, and I moved that up this weekend, because I've now taught both a husband and a wife in separate classes who want to buy a house. And they've gone through the process of getting pre-approved, having their credit looked at. One of the credits on it is really super excellent, and the other one is not bad. It's, 660 to 700 type deal. And they could afford to go out there and buy a house and so on and so forth, but they need both incomes. And it was brought to me yesterday, this multiple different things we're thinking about. Well, we're thinking about having a bankruptcy to get rid of $26,000 worth of credit card debt. And I'm like, no. And it's, well, my husband had to go buy a car. And so he brought his payment down. He went out and bought a Tesla. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, we sold our cars when all the used cars were really high as far as the demand, and they got a lot of equity for their car. It was worth more than what they bought it for, yada, yada, yada. So that happened, about 2 years ago, and they took the cash, and instead of paying cash for a new old used car, he went out and bought a Tesla. Great. That's a big help. So my idea with them, and they're in my class to get educated. They were hoping to, get their real estate mortgage license